me when said I promised, darling, I promised to be so true. But the lies have broke my heart too. And I believe that's true. Oh, yes, I did, but the meanest lie that you told to me was, darling, oh, darling, I love you. Too long on the guitar. Yeah, yeah,
All right, everyone, I'm just going to pause the music and we will get started here in just a moment. All right, welcome. It is 8:31. Welcome everybody to dealing with conflict and difficult people. My name is Carly. I am our events and community partnerships lead here at Learnit. And joining me, I have Marissa Ruiz, who is our community coordinator, and the lovely James Jeffley, who will be leading us through our session this morning. For those of you that have been following along with our events throughout the year and maybe just throughout the beginning of 2021, welcome. It's really great to see you back. To those of you who are new to our community and these Friday events, also welcome to you. Just to give you a little bit of context on Learnit, we are a learning and development organization based in San Francisco, California, and our goal is really to help upskill through soft skills and hard skills, so through technology training and professional development workshops, to really upskill and help prepare all of us for today's economy and the economy of tomorrow. So we're really thrilled to have all of you here with us every Friday, a little bit about how these sessions work specifically. And I see some chats coming in. I want to make sure everything's okay with my sound. James, give me a thumbs up. Is everything okay with my sound and my screen? Awesome. Great. A little bit about how these sessions work. We host these community events every single Friday so that our workshops and the training we do with our clients is accessible to everybody around the world. So it's been amazing to see so many of you from every corner of the globe. So actually, if you want to put in your chat where you're joining from this morning, it's always just amazing to see. We have people from Indonesia, we have people from the Bay Area, we have people from New York. So put in where you're from. It's always really fun to see. And we also carry these events with a monthly theme. So the monthly theme going into March is 21st century skills, human skills you didn't learn in school. And we felt no better way than to kick this off with dealing with difficult people with James. And these events are held by subject matter experts. So our instructors that are in the classrooms with our clients and our students every day are here with you on Fridays. And we also bring you guest speakers. So we're always trying to bring you the latest and greatest and thought leaders in different areas and subjects that are really relevant to today's work environment. So with that, I really want to introduce you all to James. Actually, really quickly before that, a couple housekeeping items, just because we always get this question. This will be recorded, and it will be available in our community site called Offsite. I will share more at the end of the session on how you can get into Offsite and some of the other perks that are associated with that free community. And as well as if you have questions throughout the session, please do use the chat. I see the chat's really active right now. And so we really invite you to use the chat. Marissa and I will surface and bubble up questions, and we'll get to as many as we can throughout the session and after the session. So now, without further ado, I would love to welcome you and kind of introduce you to James. So James is an award-winning international speaker and trainer. He is a professional coach and has been a musician and minister for, I believe, most of his life. And James has 20 plus years of experience helping folks really across the world really level up in essential life skills and achieve better results in work and in life and in play. He's a member of Toastmasters International and a two-time finalist in the World Championship of Public Speaking. So we are in good hands. And he has a really great, I've been in a lot of James classes, so I'll just speak from personal experience around growth mindset. And actually this workshop in particular is just really lovely to work with, both with our clients and on a personal level. So he's just an amazing coach. So really thrilled that you all get to experience him today. So with that, take it away, James.
Thank you so much, Carly. Let me share my screen here. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing? You can hear me and you can see my slides. We're good? Cool. Wonderful. Welcome. So welcome to Dealing with Difficult People and Conflict. Warning, the tools and tips I'm going to share with you do not work on everyone. Some of you know this. You have a difficult person in your life. You're like, I don't think this is going to work. You're probably right. But for most of the rest of the folks, there's some tools and tips in here that I think could do you instead. So why talk about conflict and difficult people? Here's why. Because conflict is inevitable. As long as you have other people, there will always be the potential for conflict. How many of you have ever wanted to just retreat into like a cave on a mountaintop? Anybody? Right? Yeah. You could still be in conflict there with yourself. You could wake up one day and go, why am I in a cave on the top of a mountain? What was I thinking? So I think conflict is inevitable, but conflict doesn't always have to be a terrible thing. Good conflict managed well, I think, is essential for leveling up in life and in business. Destructive conflict that is neglected can be costly. How costly? Well, here's the cost of conflict. On average, and just raise your hand or hit a little reaction button if this is true for you, we spend about 2 hours a week just dealing with conflict. Anybody have a similar experience? Shirley's like, it's more for me. It's more for me, right? And so what is it? And this is just in the US. I know we got people from all around the world here, so it may be similar for you. $484 billion in paid hours. $500 billion is what we're spending just in lost time and productivity on conflict. 60% of employees have never received any kind of basic conflict management training. So if we're spending that much time on it, and that much money on it, and almost 2/3 of us have never received basic conflict management training. What are we thinking? What are we doing? This should be a top priority in every organization. So I'm glad you all are here today to get some tools and tips. 33% of people who have received any kind of conflict resolution training report that it has helped them to positively navigate conflict. Just raise your hands or do a little reaction button. How many of you have gotten some kind of conflict resolution or dealing with difficult people training over the years? Or you watch the TED Talk or a podcast, or is it right? Has it helped you? Have you gotten some skills to doubt? I see a lot of yeses in the chat box. Okay, great. So you know from direct experience that this works. So let me dive in by talking about the root of all conflict. What is the root of all conflict? Let's get to the real issue here. There are lots of ways that we can get into conflict, but the root of conflict, not all conflict, but probably most of conflict, is not disagreement. We can disagree with each other, and that's fine. A conflict is more than just a disagreement. It's a situation, and this is key, where one or both or more parties perceive a threat. It doesn't have to be a real threat. They just perceive that it is a threat. Conflicts often involve struggles over power or allocation of resources or perceived threats to prestige, etc. Right? So it's a perception of a threat, and that is the root of most conflict. I'm going to talk about some other causes of conflict in a moment. So in the workplace, there are generally two categories of threats and conflict and difficult people. Threats to the work itself. Think about a situation where you've been working with people and you could not agree on what needs to be done. Should this be the priority? Should that be the priority? How many of you have had that experience? Right? Competing agendas, competing priorities. A second threat is task completion. Is it going to get done? Is it going to get done on time? Sometimes there's a worry about that. The third area where this shows up in the workplace is task quality. We don't think the task will be done correctly or at the level of quality that we all expect. Those are threats to the work itself. How many of you have experienced at least one of those? Maybe you're experiencing that now, right? Right, Pippa? The other type of threats are threats to personal and emotional needs. There was a meta study done where these researchers looked back at all of the studies done on relationship and human interaction since 1950. And they published the results in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships. And what they concluded was that there are 4 basic emotional needs that we have as human beings, right? Doesn't matter your title or your tenure or what part of the world you're in. 4 basic emotional needs. We need to feel understood. We need to feel appreciated. We need to feel respected. And finally, we need to be trusted or be able to trust others. How many of you would agree that those are key emotional needs for you? Yes, right? And think about some of the conflicts that you've had in your life with people. It could have been with based on any one of the things on the left side or the right side. You weren't feeling respected. Boom, conflict. You didn't feel appreciated or understood. Boom, conflict. You didn't feel like trust was there. Boom, conflict. Or the things on the left. So how do you deal with this stuff? Well, for the things on the left side, the threats to the work itself, priority, task completion, and quality, all of these can be addressed through clear communication with people, telling them exactly what it is you want, what success looks like, metrics to achieve, etc. One of the places where people run into problems, especially in the workplace, is a boss will assign a task and they'll go, okay, do you understand? And the employee will go, yes. And the employee will leave that meeting going, I don't understand. I don't know exactly what it is they want me to do. And then they'll go do it anyway. And then they'll come back and turn it in and they'll go, is this what you wanted? And the boss goes, no, that's not what we talked about, because you didn't really talk about it. You didn't really say exactly what you wanted. I know I've met a lot of managers over the years who've said, well, I shouldn't have to spell it out for people. These are adults. Yes. And how's that working for you? All you have to do is look at the results. If people are constantly not doing what you want because they misunderstood you, that tells me you're not having clear communication with folks. You need to spell things out. These can be addressed through agreement. Hey, we got 3 different teams in here. We have 3 different agendas, 3 different sets of priorities. What in context of what's most important for the organization, which of these things needs to go first? Okay, you know what? Your thing is really more important. That should go first. Okay, and then yours, and then mine. Got it. So that's the order 1, 2, 3. Training is a way that you can ensure that tasks get completed on time or get done or at the level of quality that you expect, or coaching employees or mentoring. So if you do any of those things, you can address the threats to the work itself. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. Yeah, I know, Sharon, some employees are too embarrassed to say they don't understand. And this is why it's incumbent upon managers to say, hey, tell me what I just said to you, because I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out. You want to make sure that that's reflective of you and not of them. You want to make it safe for them to say, I don't understand, right? But you need to make sure that they understand what you ask. Now, for the other side of this, for the emotional needs, understood, appreciated, respected, and trusted, basically the short answer is you do those things. If people don't feel understood, you take the time to seek to understand. What do they mean? What do they want? What does it look like? What's important to them? You ask questions. You get hyper curious. For the people who don't feel appreciated, you show appreciation. Now, don't just have a blanket way of showing appreciation. Talk to the people and find out, hey, how would you like to be appreciated? Some people, they want a parade. Right? I need a parade. I need a marching band. I need like lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Other people are like, no, I don't need all that. Just a private chat. Tell me you think I'm doing a good job. I don't need a parade, but I do need you to acknowledge my hard work. How many of you have done really good hard work on something and nobody said even thank you? Have you had that before? Right, Sabine, right, Carly, right, Regina? So, after a while, you're like, well, why am I even doing this if there's no thank you in it? And I know I've met a lot of managers who are like, well, I don't need appreciation, but your team does. Your team does. Showing respect. How do I do that? Ask the person, what does respect look like to them? And then whatever that looks like to them, then you show them respect in that way. Don't assume that how you view respect is the same way that they view respect. One size does not fit all. And the last thing about trust or being trusted, trust is earned, but you have to give people an opportunity to earn trust with you. And they have to give you an opportunity to earn trust with them. The American Psychological Association says that there are 3 components of trust, and it's not necessarily honesty. The first component of trust is that you trust the person will do what they say they will do. Integrity. The second component of trust is you trust they will not throw you under the bus. You trust that they have your best interests at heart. And the third component of trust is less about honesty and it is more about predictable behavior. Did this person show up sane on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday? Can I count on their behavior to be relatively predictable? Those are the 3 elements of trust. So what do you think about that? The root cause of conflict being a threat either to the work or emotional needs. Anybody agree with that? Right? Who thinks there's something else at the heart of this? Yeah, you're right, Shirley. Here's what I think is also at the heart of this. Sometimes our conflict, sometimes the difficult people in our lives, that's the cause of that is history. We have some history with people. Something has happened. Something has not gone well. Somebody said something. Somebody did something that hurt or upset the other person, right? And until you clear up that history, you're probably going to continue to have difficulty with this person and maybe even conflict. Can anybody relate to what I'm saying? Just show up hands or with the reaction button. How many of you are experiencing some difficulty or some conflict with some people because of some old unhealed stuff? Right, Anthony? Right? So until you clean that up, it's probably going to continue to show up because that unhealed wound, that old undealt with history is creating noise between the two of you. Mental, emotional, psychological noise. Here's one way to clean up that noise. I'd like you to think about the person that you have the most difficulty with, the person that you're usually in conflict with, right? If they're next to you in the room, don't look at them. just stay, focus on me. Now, picture them in your mind's eye. There they are. You can see them clearly. Right underneath their photo, you have a caption for them. In the chat box, if you would, write down the real caption you have for that picture of your difficult person. What's the real caption? I want to see. Just jot it in the chat box. Selfish, control issues, tyrant, cantankerous jerk. Here we go again. Ooh, the B word. Consuming, liar, ego, annoying, aggressive, limited, ungrateful, idiot. You're in it, right? No respect, isn't patronizing, idiot. A lot of idiots in here. Do you all know the same people? Okay, so think about how you feel now. Think about how you feel thinking that caption about that person. So how does your caption for that person, idiot, cantankerous jerk, controlling, how does your caption about them affect the way you listen to them? How does your caption for idiot affect the way you speak to idiot? How does your caption for jerk affect the way you see jerk? Not good, negative. How does your caption for whatever else you wrote in there, controlling, affect the way you feel about controlling? You see, folks, I know if you were in a court of law, you could probably make a good case. You've got evidence to prove they are indeed, Your Honor, a cantankerous jerk or an idiot or controlling or manipulative or whatever your caption is. You have experience with them. I get that. But here's what I also know about captions. At some point, the captions, the negative captions we have for people act like a set of blinders on a racehorse. And at some point, we can't even see the good things they might be doing because all we see is jerk or negative or controlling or manipulative or whatever the caption is. And here's what I know. You can't effectively relate with someone you condemn. Does anybody feel me on this point? You can't effectively relate with someone you condemn. Because every time you have oh, look, here's an email from jerk. Oh, I have a Zoom meeting with manipulative. Right? Oh, I have a phone call with controlling. Yay. By focusing on the negative aspects of your relationship with them, you psych yourself out of positive interaction. You prevent yourself. You work yourself into a mood even before they open their mouth. Now, maybe in that meeting, they're not being a cantankerous jerk, but you've already talked yourself into expecting them to be that way. Am I making any amount of sense here, folks? Right? Just as you have a caption for them, you know what else is true? They got one for you. So in most cases, folks, in terms of difficult people, it's not even the real you talking to the real them. It's jerk talking to manipulative. It is controlling talking to aggressive. It's not the real you talking to the real them. And that's one of the noisiest things between you and the other is your negative captions for each other. You like that, Peter? Thank you. So how do I dial down the noise? Well, I'm going to give you 3 steps. Number 1, a helpful phrase to replace your negative caption for them. If you normally think of them as controlling or manipulative as jerk, come up with something else to fill that spot. Say, oh, okay, well, bless their heart. If you're from the South, you know that's a phrase. Well, just bless their heart. Now, you don't actually say it to their face. You say it in your head because you're trying to dial your own noise down. Or you say they're doing the best they can, right? They're doing the best they can at their current level of consciousness. Some helpful phrase, right? So that you don't focus on the negative phrase that you normally have. Here's the second thing. Think of some positive thing about them. How many, if you're totally being honest, will say that, okay, yeah, my difficult person actually does some good thing? Maybe they're punctual, or maybe they're consistent, or maybe they're good with numbers, or maybe they're good with analysis or whatever, right? There's some good thing about them. So whatever that is, use that to replace the negative caption. So instead of having a meeting with jerk, you're having a meeting with punctual. Instead of having a phone call with annoying, you're having a phone call with gets the work done. Instead of having an email from controlling, you're sending an email to good with kids or whatever. Lynn Grabhorn wrote a book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting, and in it she says you get what you focus on. If I only focus on your shortcomings, if I only focus on what I perceive to be negative about you, at some point that's all you are to me, and then I don't get to see any other good thing about you. So think of something positive about them. How many of you really want to dial the noise down and dial your relationship up? You want to get rid of a lot of this negativity. Anybody? Yeah, okay. All right. Here's the third step. Actually acknowledge them to their face for their positive traits. Some of you just got chills. Ooh, you mean I have to say it to them? Yes. So it's something you practice this in a mirror first so you can say it with a straight face and without laughing or crying. But at some point you go to them and you go, hey, Jacqueline, I was at a meeting the other day and we were talking about the importance of acknowledging people for their good qualities. And I thought of you. And what I really appreciate about you is how detail-oriented you are. Thank you. Right? And that's it. You don't tell them what the original caption was that you're replacing. you don't go through any of that. Now, if any of you are on the call actually work with each other, don't be surprised if sometime in the next 24 hours somebody comes up to you and go, hey, Lars, I was at a meeting the other day. We were talking about acknowledging people for their good things. So does that make sense, folks? Right? So think about something. Yeah.
Oh, James, I was going to say we have a couple chats, so I just thought I'd share them. Sarita had a good question around, is that being truthful? So if you don't feel like you're fully, like, how do you make it feel genuine, I guess, to yourself, or be truthful for yourself?
Unless they're a complete narcissistic sociopath, they probably are doing something good. So you have to work through your own noise to find the one good thing that you can say with truth. Okay, that's a good thing about them. And it might be a trivial thing, like, okay, they're always prepared, right? Or they always bring the right tools to the job, or they're good with Excel, right? You have to look for the thing, because for most of us, we're blinded by the one negative thing. So we can't see the good thing over here. So you got to do the work to look for the good thing. Was there another one?
A lot of people are just expressing, like, what if you're really having a hard time? If you're really having a hard time seeing even the human side of this person. But I think we're kind of getting at that. But just a lot of people saying, they're having a hard time finding a difficult quality or some positive quality.
Yeah, find something you two have in common. Now, this takes you doing something that you may not want to do. It takes you leaning in. It takes you leaning in and making the effort, doing the work to try to get to know something about them beyond your caption or your experience with them. I'm not saying that's required in every situation. I'm saying if you really want to improve this, that's one way to do it. So let me continue. Who came here to learn how to change other people? Because you've probably been to a class on difficult people, or you've watched a TED Talk or listened to a podcast and you picked up some nuggets that have worked, but you're like, I want to know what is the one thing I can do to change other people. And Francis raised his hand. So thank you. I appreciate you being honest on that, Francis. So how many of you think it's still possible to change other people? Anybody? Okay. All right. Well, let me tell you. There was a French playwright by the name of Jean-Paul Sartre, and he wrote a play called No Exit. And in this play, it depicted three characters who find themselves waiting in a mysterious room. It's a depiction of the afterlife in which three deceased characters are punished by being locked in a room together for eternity. Can you imagine being locked in a room for all eternity with the most difficult people in your world? Can you imagine that? Whew, some of you just shuddered, right? This is the source of Sartre's very famous phrase, l'enfer, c'est les autres. In other words, hell is other people. Have you heard of that phrase before? Okay. So how many of you are hoping that somewhere there's a book with magic spells that you can learn to change other people, right? Or maybe there's a potion that you could give them and boom, they would change. Or how many of you are thinking, well, somewhere in a lab, someone's trying to come up with a cure for difficultitis, right? So I know somebody's got to be working on this. Or if they had an app, I could just point my phone at them. Boom, they would change. How many of you are just looking for a good old-fashioned Jedi mind trick? Difficult you will not be. Right? Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, as far as I know, there's no spell, there's no potion, there's no app, there's no lab work, there's no Jedi mind trick. But there is a way to make the difficult people in your life act right. Do you want to know what it is? You ready? I'm about to give you the keys to the kingdom here, folks. You ready? All right, take notes. You're going to need some things. Number one, you're going to need a time machine. Number two, you're going to need a gauntlet. 3, you're going to need the 6 infinity stones that govern all space, mind, soul, reality, time, and power. Then you're going to need to put all those together and then snap your fingers, and then your difficult people will become not so difficult. Anybody get this reference? The Avengers movie, right? If you have the power of the infinity glove, you could just simply snap your fingers and bend time and space to your will. Yeah, like that's going to happen. So we don't have time machines. We don't have infinity gauntlets where we have control over all time, space, and reality. So if you can't change other people, how many of you know really you can't change other people because you've tried, right? If you can't change other people, what can you change? And Lars just, I think, pointed to it. And Shirley too. You can change yourself. And that's not always easy to do. How many of you are still struggling with trying to change something about you? Every day over here, right? Charles Swindoll once said, life is about 10% of what happens to you and about 90% of how you react to it. 10% of what happens to you, situations, circumstances, COVID, you had no say in that. Boom, global pandemic, there you are. But 90% of that is how I choose to react to the COVID or the economy or whatever else is going on in my life. Carly mentioned in the intro, I'm a professional speaker, and one of the speaking colleagues I knew, he passed away a long time ago, but he said something at an event one day, and it really stuck with me. And I thought this was like some Yoda level wisdom he dropped on me. He said, James, you only have 3 options for dealing with any kind of conflict in your life. And I'm okay. Let me write that down. What are they, Joe? He said, you can either confront, you can cope, or you can leave. And that was so profound, it shook me. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, only 3? He said, only 3, confront, cope, or leave. Confront simply means that you address it. You speak to it. You don't stick your head in the sand. You don't sit there thinking, oh, well, maybe if I ignore it, it's going to go away or fix itself, because that never happens. You say something about it. You make a request, right? If someone's pushing your boundaries, you assert your boundaries. You deal with it. Confront doesn't mean we're having this negative, teeth gnashing, conversation. It just means, hey, I'm gonna have a conversation with this person about whatever the issue is. You address it. Cope means, you know what? I'm not going to try to change this. This is who and how they are. I'm going to let them be. I'm going to stay over here in my lane and have peace. I'm not going to allow their drama vortex to suck me in and create drama in my life. I'm going to accept my situation as it is, and I'm not going to try and change it. Or sometimes if you're dealing with somebody that's just too difficult, too toxic, you might need to leave them, whether it's a job or a relationship or whatever. How many of you have left a job before because the work environment was too toxic, right? Gene, you know what I'm talking about, right? Right, Jacqueline? You're like, hey, the money's not worth my life. It's not worth my health. I manifested a herniated disc in my back because of a bad manager. Once I changed departments, I'm like, whoa, I can dance now. Wow. Well, not that that's dancing, but anyway, I had greater freedom of movement, right? So don't underestimate the power of walking away. Now, you might need a plan. If you plan on walking away from your job, okay, let me think about this. Let me make sure I have my exit strategy mapped out. But don't stay in a bad situation, especially if it's draining you, if it's killing you, right? You do get to walk away. What do you think about that? Confront, cope, or leave? Does that make sense? So what I would invite you to do is think about the difficult situation that you're experiencing and ask yourself, just try it on. Go to the perspective store and say, all right, if I decided to confront this and say something about it, what might that sound like? And you work it out in your head, or you practice with a friend. If I decided to cope with this, what might that look like? What are some coping strategies? What do I need to let go of? Sometimes I get into conflict because I'm trying to change other people, or I'm trying to change the circumstances that are well beyond my control, and I need to accept reality. Or what would it look like for me to leave? And sometimes leave doesn't mean you quit a job. It just means you stop working on that project, or you delegate something to somebody, right, that you're doing. So leave can look like lots of different things. If I'm having conflict with someone, James Baldwin, who was an American novelist, essayist, and activist, said, we can disagree and still love each other. How many of you are in families or relationships where you disagree, but you still love the person, right? We can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. If that's the root of our disagreement, okay, then I either need to confront you about that, or I need to establish some hard boundaries with you so as to protect myself from you. I'm not saying, like I said at the beginning, this stuff doesn't work with everybody. There's some folks who are not interested in dialing down conflict with you. There's some folks who are actually interested in increasing conflict with you. There's some folks who might be interested in actually doing harm to you. I'm not saying you got to go out of your way to make peace with those folks. I say at a minimum, protect yourself. This does not work with everybody. Anybody know who Bruce Lee was? One of the world's great martial artists. He had a great quote. He said, one of the best lessons you can learn is to master how to remain calm. Calm is a superpower. Calm is a superpower. So think about that difficult person. There they are, and they say that thing that they say, they do that thing that they do, and then boom. How many of you have an initial reaction where they say their thing and then bam, you just want to say something right back? Anybody? And when you do that, what usually happens? Peace and love and prosperity, or conflict and gnashing of teeth and like horrible stuff, right? How many of you have regretted just flying off with the first initial emotional reaction, right? Okay. So how do I remain calm in dealing with my difficult person? Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, if you haven't read that book, read it. It's an amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. He said between stimulus, they say or do that thing that ticks you off, and response, how you react to it, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So the trick here, folks, is to increase the distance between what they said or did and how you consciously, mindfully respond to it. Does that make sense? So how do I do that? So imagine you're talking to your difficult person and they say or do that thing that ticks you off. Here's the first thing you do, and I want you to do this with me. They say their thing, boom, stimulus. Just go ahead and do this. Yeah, you see that? You know what you're doing? You're telling yourself to shut up. You're giving yourself a body language cue to shut up because they said that thing and you want to go, well, and another thing. And you just want to fire back, but they say the thing. This is your cue to be quiet. And what you're doing is you're lengthening the space between stimulus and your response. Now in that space is your power to choose your response. While you're in this space, let me give you some techniques to further anchor yourself in calm. Anybody seen a picture of a hurricane? Right? Some of you may have been in a hurricane. What's in the middle of the hurricane? The eye. It's calm in the middle of the hurricane. All around it, 200-mile-an-hour winds or more. But in the middle, it's perfectly calm. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to be when you're with your difficult person. Not out here in the drama vortex with them, but right there in the middle where it's calm. How do I get there? And then practice a technique we call brain breathing. What is brain breathing? It's not just taking deep breaths. It's you take breaths, but you also start counting in your head. Because the moment you start counting, because they probably told you this, is count to 10 when somebody ticks you off, right? There's a reason for that. And there's science that proves this now. When you start counting in your head and breathing, it activates the mathematical and language parts of your brain. In fact, it activates 6 to 8 different parts of the brain that are not our limbic brain. The limbic brain is where we have the emotional center. That's the thing that goes boom and then bam, right? So if you stimulus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You might have to count to 100. Just keep doing this and just keep counting, because the more you count, the more you engage the logical reasoning portions of your brain, which usually shut off the moment you get emotional. The moment you get emotional, the logic, reasoning, higher level executive decision-making functions of your brain stop working. How do we re-engage that? We be quiet, we breathe, and we start counting. Conscious breathing also has another benefit. It stimulates the vagus nerve. It's this thing that goes from your brain through your face down to your abdomen, right? And when you stimulate the vagus nerve, you can actually feel yourself relaxing. So do this with me. Inhale, hold it, exhale. Exhale twice as long as you inhaled. Inhale. Hold it. Exhale. Do you feel that? Do you feel yourself having a deeper relaxation? It just from a couple of breaths. So that's what you want to do to remain calm in the middle of the difficulty, the conflict with this person. Now, there's another thing that you can do, and this is while you're doing this, you can actually visualize. I don't think you can actually do it, physically, but you can visualize breathing up one nostril and breathing out the other. Just visualize that in your head. You're not actually doing it. You're just imagining in your head, I'm breathing in one, I'm breathing out the other. You're just imagining that. Here's the other benefit. While you're imagining breathing in one nostril and out the other, you're not thinking about how idiotic they are. You're not thinking about how horrible they are, because you have shifted your focus to your breathing now. But you're calmer as a result. And now you have increased the space between stimulus and response. Does that make sense, folks? Okay. Here's another thing you can do to mitigate conflict, or maybe even dial it down. Anybody read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey? It's a great book. One of the 7 habits is seek first to understand and then be understood. Sometimes when we listen, we don't listen to understand. We listen just for that space where we can jump in and then say what we were going to say. And we weren't really listening to them. We were just planning out our script, right? But because one of the causes, one of those human emotional needs was, I don't feel understood. So maybe the reason why there's conflict is you don't understand what they're trying to say, or they don't understand what you're trying to say. So don't try and get your point across first. Seek first to understand. To do this means you've really got to listen now. So while you're breathing, you can listen to what they're saying. Be aware of your nonverbal communication, because you don't want to be arms crossed and, sour look on your face, right? You want to be engaged with them. You also want to suspend the judgment or criticism. You want to erase those captions that you had for them and really let them speak. Don't interrupt, let them speak. Then when they're done speaking, you can say, are you complete? All right. May I ask you some questions? You lean in and you get curious. Because if the reason for the conflict is they don't feel heard or understood, you're now you're demonstrating that you are trying to understand and hear them. So you ask some clarifying questions like, can you tell me more about that? Can you tell me more about what happened? Or what exactly do you mean by that? I'm not sure I understand. Or how do you feel about this situation? How do you feel about your role in this? How do you feel about me? Ask them, what's the best outcome you're looking for? You want to be solution focused in this conversation. What obstacles might we or you encounter on this path? What will you do? Those are great questions as a manager, not just as somebody who's trying to deal with, navigating conflict with someone. There are lots of other great questions you can ask, but those are a few good ones. Is this making sense, folks? Right? Okay.
James,
Yes.
we had one question that I feel like was relevant to the point of staying calm.
Uh-huh.
Tanner said, when you're kind of trying to leave that space with staying calm, what if you feel like you might be attacked or, even criticized for not responding or having a comeback per se? How do you kind of cope with that or manage that?
Again, and you could say something like, well, I appreciate your perspective. I thought it was more important for me to listen to you in that moment, to really understand what you were saying before I offered a response. This is not a competition. You and I are in a relationship to try and get things done here at the organization. It's important that you feel heard, and I was giving you the space for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You could say, instead of thinking I'm right and you're wrong, you could shift your own internal thinking to, well, you know what? There might be multiple valid perspectives on any given matter, yours included. Maybe this person does have a point. Maybe they are saying something that I need to listen to. Let me get my own judgment and criticism out of the way and entertain what they're saying. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It just means you listen. You might inquire and avoid the tendency to challenge someone through a question. What did you mean by that? Right? Well, tell me more about that. Right? Avoid supporting your own position. Well, don't you think you should have asked me before you reached out to the client? Yes, I asked a question, but I was supporting my own position with that question. So you want to avoid questions like that. I would ask something like, so, what did you do? And did you think that was the right course of action? If you had to do it again, would you do it differently? Right? I would be much more Socratic and curious in my approach. Now, let me just share a few last things before we adjourn. There are some words that you may be unaware of that can actually instigate conflict. You may be unaware of them because they just show up in our speech normally. Here's some language that encourages conflict. And let's see if you've experienced this. Here's a word, but. Has anyone ever thrown but on you before? Right there. Gene, I think that's a great idea. But, Richard, you did a great job on that project. But, what are we really saying when we say but after the end of a sentence, folks? We're saying everything that I just said is not true. It voids it all out, as Lindsay says, right? It's like a giant eraser. That's a lovely hairdo. But here comes the giant eraser. So pull that out of your vocabulary. You could say it's the deal killer. You could say something like, and. Hey, Nathan, you did a great job on that project. And I think there are some other things that are worth considering in the future. So, and is not an agreement. It's an acknowledgement of the initial statement as well as the statement that follows. So try working and in instead of but. Now, some people have asked me, well, James, what about however? Could I say however? Well, let's try it out. Hey, Carly, I think you're doing a great job. However is but in a tuxedo. That's all it is. That's all. So get rid of but and however. Here's another one. Should. Anybody ever should you before? Well, Jonathan, here's what I think you should do. Well, Jimmy, you should do this. Well, hey, Peter, you should. It's hard to say should without wagging your finger, isn't it? If people are shoulding on you, then it feels like they're your mom or dad. They're being condescending, right? Well, you should do this. Judgmental. Here's another one. Obviously and clearly. Well, Luis, obviously this is, well, Eileen, clearly this, well, no, it's not obvious. It is not clear to everyone. Instead of saying obvious and clearly, ask a question. Hey, Nathan, how do you see this? Hey, Jacqueline, what's your perspective on this? Seek first to understand, because not everything is obvious or clear to everyone. Here's the last one. Always and never. Because what's usually true is it's not always. Well, you always do this. No, you don't. You never do this. No, sometimes I do. Right? That's that person who feels that they're trying to hype the situation because they don't feel heard or respected or appreciated or understood. Right? So now's the time to listen and not be defensive. Let me give you some final thoughts about conflict. Conflict is inevitable, as I said earlier. It's always going to happen. Healthy conflict is actually good if you manage it. If everybody's always in agreement around the meeting table, most of you are unnecessary. You want different ideas. You want different opinions, right? And so we can disagree, and that's healthy if we manage it. Destructive conflict is costly if you neglect it. Well, that'll fix itself. No, it won't. And if you really want to have less conflict, or if you want to resolve it more quickly and easily, do this one thing. Work on building relationships with people. Work on building healthy, respectful, positive relationships with people. I'm not saying you have to be, oh, I love you, man, my BFF forever. No, but show some respect with people. Listen to people. Try to understand them, right? Healthy, respectful, positive relationships. Not everybody wants to be in relationship with you. Understand that. But at a minimum, especially in the business world, we should respect each other and listen to each other. So if you remember nothing else from what I say today, remember this. Connect with people. Get to know them. Find out what you have in common, because you probably have more in common than not. Communicate with people. Find out what's important to them. Make the effort to listen more than you speak. And finally, care. Just care. Care like they're a human being that you care about. Care like they matter on some level, whether they're in a personal relationship with you or they're in a business relationship. We all need each other to survive. We all need each other to get through this thing called life. No one succeeds alone. We all need each other. So if we can just connect and communicate and care, it's amazing how much conflict we can dial down and how many less difficult people we might actually have in our lives. Thank you all for your time, for your attention. I'm James Jeffley on behalf of Learnit. I wish the very best for all of you, and I hope to see you all again in some future Learnit live online presentation. Until next time, thank you. Carly, back to you.
James, thank you so much. Everybody, let's give James a little virtual round of applause. If you enjoyed the session, would love to hear your feedback in the chat. You can use the reaction I know I learned a lot. That was one of my favorites so far. So thank you so much, James. We're already getting some requests for one, how can I stay in touch with James? How can I get the recording? So in lieu of that, I did promise you some things at the beginning of the session on how to access all of that. And the good news is we have a new community site called Offsite, which is a free online community platform dedicated to helping you learn and build on the skills you're learning in these live sessions, and start networking and communicating, and also communicate with our instructors after class. So the most immediate benefits from that platform are recording, access to chat with James and myself and Marissa and our other instructors. And there's also discounts on offers on full length courses. So we do offer full length courses on dealing with conflict and difficult people and other people management type of skills like this. So Offsite is a really wonderful place to go for that. And really quickly, I'll just show you the platform briefly, and we will send out more information on how to access. But a lot of you are also asking about upcoming events that we have, which is great. And like we said, we have a full lineup for the month of March. So when you go in Offsite and you go to events, you can actually come in here and RSVP right away for all the programming we have. Again, we have these Friday sessions every week. And then in Offsite, you always have exclusive access to Ask the Expert sessions every Wednesday and some other special events. So really encourage you all to explore this platform and also reach out to Marissa, James, and I in here. James is in here as well. So I would love to see you in here. And really quickly as well, the events we have coming up for March, again, are all around dealing with conflict, 21st century skills. If you attend the next 3 events, all of you are here today, you'll also get a badge on 21st century skills. So that badge is a badge for certification, and you can share that on your LinkedIn. You can share that with your employer. And we did that last month, and it's been a really great way for all of our members, our community members, to show to your employer, to your friends, I'm working to upskill, join me. And it's a good resource to just show the work that you're putting in every Friday. So Olipa has a question, just where will we get the badges? We will email out the badge and send them out in Offsite to members at the end of the month. So for February, we just sent them out this week. So with that, I'll stay on for a couple of minutes, and I really want to thank James again for your time, for your insights. It's really a pleasure working with you. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Carly. I'll hang out for a couple of minutes too if anybody else has questions. Shirley has a question. She's got her hand up there.
James, I'd very much like to talk to you, but I think I'm going to wait till more people have closed out, and you'll know why after I talk to you. I'm not a plant. I'm not a plant. I'm really not, Carly, but I'll share with you in just a moment when more people leave.
Okay. All right. Oh, no worries. Now nobody wants to leave. What's Shirley going to talk about? Yeah.
Oh, it looks like Pippa. Yeah.
Thanks, James. That was tremendous. I wanted to ask you, what about the situation which the person in question is very good and generous to the rest of the world, but not to you? I find that a particularly difficult situation.
Is this a personal relationship or
more personal than work? Yes.
There's an old saying that I sometimes resort to, and it's that people show up in our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And there's another perspective that sometimes people show up to teach us a lesson, right? Carolyn Mace wrote a book called Sacred Contracts, and she says we're all just spiritual beings having a physical human experience, and we sign up for certain experiences for the growth of our soul, for the evolution of our being. I'm not saying you have to buy this. I'm saying it's a perspective, right? And so what if you have a contract with this person who's generous to the rest of the world, but not so much to you? If you signed up for this experience, what do you think the life lesson might be for you?
That's what you need.
That's what you need? Right? Yeah, it could be. So what's the life lesson?
Subconsciously, I mean.
Yeah, subconsciously. Yeah. Right? I don't know what that life lesson might be for you, maybe they're not that generous to the rest of the world. It's only a perception. Or maybe they are, but there's something that's blocking them from giving to you in the way that you want to receive from them. Or maybe the universe is trying to teach you to rely on yourself for the things that you're wanting from them.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It feels like there's some resonance in that one for you. So it's I don't have a magic ball where I look and I go, there's the answer. I'm just throwing things out. So, but if that resonates with you, sit with that.
Thank you.
Here's what I think I know about you. Are you smart? Are you smart, Pippa?
Yes.
Are you resourceful?
I am, and I've got lots of friends.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So, don't expect, blood from a turnip. Right?
Thank you.
Maybe this is just not the person for that. Anybody else?
James, Lori just asked, there was a couple of books that you referenced. I was going to say I can add those in offsite and to the notes from this event, and we can email those out as well. But I know it was seven habits of highly effective people, and there were a couple others. So if you're open to sharing those.
Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey. I don't remember if there was a third. Those are the 2 that come to mind.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Shirley, we're down to 137. I don't know if that's.
Well, James, I am
Maddie.
Online, so I do have to get back to my full-time job.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know, my son-in-law does not know that I logged on to a class today, and he happens to be Damon Lemby. And so, Carly, you can share with him or not. I don't know if I will. I think he'd rather be surprised. And I know, having watched him and work, and just, of course, being a very prejudiced, proud mother-in-law, but I had no idea that this class was going to pop up on my Facebook. And I've been dealing with a parent for the last couple of years. This year it's intensified because, we're quarantined and I'm doing homeschool online.
Yeah.
And I happen to have another one of those emails from her telling me, yes, all the work's been turned in. And I'm looking at the work going, no, it hasn't. And this is the third time. And when this class popped up, I thought, I'm just going to take an hour out of my morning and I'm just going to just sit in and just see. And I've just been so impressed. Of course, you come with a pedigree that's above and beyond reproach, but I so enjoyed everything, took notes, and everything you said, of course, just hits the mark. I think we have to realize where people, like you brought up, the good point, where they are coming from, what in their past has caused them to become the little irritants that you label them in your life. Right. And I think with this parent in particular, it has to have been some issue with school, and this is the way she coped. And she's got an exterior like an armadillo, I tell you. Yeah. And it was just delightful for you to share what you did today, maybe reaffirming for some of us, and maybe you just happened to come through today when it was needed most. Thank you ever so much. Carly, you did a great job. And I will share with my son-in-law as soon as I'm able to, but thank you both so much.
Thank you, Shirley. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Really appreciate it.
Maddie, did you have a question?
Yes, a very quick question for you, James. How can we replace the word should?
If you think about why we use the word should, it often comes from a place of judgment. I judge that what you did was wrong. You should have done this other thing, right? And sometimes that might be true, depending on the circumstance. You may be totally valid in saying that. But I look at the impact of the word. And the impact of the word usually creates some noise in the space between you and them, which makes them less receptive to hearing any other good suggestions you may have. So what I'm looking at doing is being mindful of the words that I use that are less noise inducing. To answer your question, instead of saying should, I might be more curious and say, well, hey, Maddie, so tell me, what was your thought process around XYZ? What were you thinking in how you approached that situation? In hindsight, would you have changed anything? I might go that route rather than just judging. You should have done this or you should not have done that. Does that make sense?
Sure. And how about when you actually you should because you want to give a piece of advice?
Yeah. Don't give advice. Especially now, it's different if you're a parent. I get that because I've had my, at a certain age, that's your responsibility. But if it's another adult and they didn't ask you for advice, how do you like it when people just give you unsolicited advice, Maddie?
I might get annoyed.
Yeah, and probably the same for other people. So don't give unsolicited advice. If somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Maddie, I'm struggling with this situation. What do you think I should do?" Then give advice if you have that kind of relationship with them, if you're a trusted counsel for them. If you don't know them that well, I would probably still go with asking questions and being curious first to say, well, what did you want? What was the result? How did you feel about that result? If you had to do it over, would you do anything differently? Right? This is a coaching technique, because one of the beautiful things about coaching is you don't tell people, if you're doing it right, you don't tell people what they should think or do. You ask them and you trust that they have their own wisdom inside. They are creative, resourceful, whole. They're not broken. They know how to solve their own problems. They just may not be seeing the answer right now because, their brain is clouded with whatever. So my job is to help clear that space so they can think clearly to access their own wisdom. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Good. Anybody else?
Thank you, Maddie. That was a great one. We also had one come through the chat that I meant to vocalize Maddie's as well, but also around, what do you do if someone at the point of meeting you, there's just a lack of respect, whether it's, just fundamentally, maybe there doesn't seem to be respect there from the point of meeting you. How do you kind of handle that?
Politely but assertively draw a hard boundary. And this is, remember, confront, cope, leave. So I might say something like, "Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. Have a good day," and then walk away. The longer I stay there trying to get them to like me or understand me or hear me, the more energy I'm just going to spend. And I don't want to spend that kind of energy on folks that aren't willing to meet me at least halfway, right? So, show up with a little respect. I show up with a little respect. Okay, we can have a conversation. But the moment it seems like, that's not happening, okay, well, thanks. Have a good day. Ciao. Bye-bye. Exit stage left.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. And James, thank you so much for staying on a little bit extra time. Really appreciate it. Again, if you have more questions, please reach out to us in Offsite. You can also email Marissa and I or James directly. We'll send a follow-up email with more information on how to stay in contact. But thank you, everybody, for your time. And also thank you to the folks that are joining via YouTube. We have some folks live streaming in. So,
Carly, one quick thing. Somebody
yeah.
said, how do you relate your strategy to those with narcissistic traits? You don't. You run. Narcissists are not good for you. They only care about themselves. Get them out of your life as quickly as possible. I'm not saying they're a horrible person. They've got a mental thing that's affecting them, and they're not thinking clearly, and they don't care about anyone but themselves. So do not get caught up with narcissists. That never ends well. It never ends well. Ask me how I know. It never ends well. So run. But I can change them. No, you can't. No, you can't. They will eat you alive and spit you out. Leave, run, get away. Go research some articles on that, especially if you're empathic, the empathic dance, the dance that empaths do with narcissists. You think you can change them. You think they need you. No, they just need you for food for their ego. Run. All right, that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
That is the truth.
Carol, it doesn't matter to me. Family member, colleague, run. I have people in my family I do not talk to. Sorry. I did, blood. I don't care. I don't care how much DNA we share. No, you're just not a good person. I'm not gonna die. I'll bless you. I won't curse you. I'll just go, okay, I wish you well from afar. But I'm not inviting you to the Thanksgiving dinner. Sorry. Anyway. All right. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, James. All right. It's clearly a hot topic. Take care, everybody. Have a great Friday.